Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the What's Up Wednesday, International Games Month. What is it, and should I sign up webinar? Today with me are Danielle Acton, Megan Wilson, and myself. My name is George Bergstrom, and I'm the Southwest Regional Coordinator for the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. Today's webinar is also co-sponsored by the American Library Association's Games and Gaming Roundtable. I'd like to start the webinar off with just a few announcements. To register for other webinars or other trainings available from the Professional Development Office, please see the Indiana State Library's events calendar, which can be found on our website at www.in.gov/library. The session is 1 hour, so you will get 1 LU for today. If you are watching the archived recording of this webinar, the instructions on how to obtain your LEU are available in the video's description on YouTube. Or you can find those instructions on the Indiana State Library's continuing education site under the LEU policies. All right, so we'll go ahead and start. As I said, my name is George Bergstrom. I'll let Danielle and Megan introduce themselves as they get their sections here in just a moment, but let's go ahead and jump right in. So today we're going to go over this sort of rough agenda, and as I said, please feel free to use the chat to let us know if you have questions. I'm going to do a very brief history of the event and some of the resources that are available. And then both Danielle and Megan will be talking about programming and their experiences in their libraries. And we're going to try to leave 15 or 20 minutes for discussion at the end. So if you don't have questions during the individual parts of the program, be sure to save them up for us and we can have good discussion. So, International Games Month has actually been around since 2007 when it was National Games Day. And that initial event was an attempt to set a world record, which the group pretty quickly realized is very difficult and very expensive to do. But it did grow into what stayed National Games Day for about 5 years. And then it became International Games Day in 2012, became International Games Week in 2017. And last year was the first year that it was officially International Games Month. Although, as any of you who've participated in the past may know, we weren't really all that strict during COVID. So you could have done anything the whole month, pretty much any time since 2020. The committee is put together of members of the ALA's Games and Gaming Roundtable, and we make resources available on our website, which I forgot to drop those in the chat. So let me grab those for you all. There we go. So there is both our main website as well as the International Games Month site. You can get help on the League of Librarian Gamers on Facebook or on our Discord. We do other programming on Twitch and of course Instagram as well. So there's plenty of resources from the committee itself and from ALA's Game RT, including the webinar listed here that we did last year on running a game jam in your library. So those are kind of the general resources that are available. A really quick overview of what the event is. But I wanted to spend the bulk of our time today kind of you all hearing some practical advice and stories from practitioners in the field. So I'm going to, at this point, turn it over to Danielle.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, wherever you may be. As George mentioned, my name is Danielle Acton. I'm currently the Adult Engagement Coordinator at the Hamilton East Public Library, which serves Fishers and Noblesville, Indiana. Just to give you a quick background about myself, we didn't plan anything at my library, at my previous library in 2007 when it was first National Games Day, because I didn't find out about it in time. But 2008 and on, we've been doing something just about every year. I think the only exception being 2020, which is understandable. So I know I've got like a lot of text on my slide, this one and the next one, but I've done a lot of different things over the years for National Games Day, International Games Month, week, whatever. I just want to give you some ideas, get the ideas rolling. And a lot of these are probably kind of, no-brainers. You would think, yeah, that's something I could try to do at my library, but it's just always good to hear what other folks are doing. So some of the things that have been really successful. Retro video, of course, are always a draw for those folks of a certain age that are feeling some nostalgia. They get to play those games that they remember from their childhood and possibly introduce those to their littles as well if they have them. One thing that was really popular, I think it was 2011, was the Frogger 30th anniversary. So we actually had I think it was a staff member that had an original Atari 2600. They were happy to bring it in to the library, and they had the original Frogger cartridge. So we had a high score tournament for Frogger, original console, which was exciting. Of course, when you have a tournament, you need to have some kind of prizes or incentives. We usually do gift cards or games that we can give away that are either donated from, I will use this term many times, an FLGS, friendly local game store, or prizes that are provided by the library through programming funds or through the Friends of the Library. We often ask our Friends of the Library groups to donate prizes as well. Okay, so retro video games, life-size or giant board games. You'll see a picture in just a few minutes, but these are often a big draw if you can work it out. We've done life-size Scrabble. That doesn't take a whole lot of, like in the way of supplies. You just need some like letter size pages printed with all of the Scrabble letters, and you can lay them out on a floor using masking tape. It takes a little bit of time to do that, but it was really fun that day when we made that giant Scrabble board on the floor, and looked great in pictures as well. If you're lucky enough to have some really, what's the word, handy do-it-yourself in your community, own giant Catan board out of like plywood, and they had painted them and had little wooden blocks for all of the pieces. That was also a really cool thing that they lent to us. While you might not have that around you, you can always ask staff or volunteers if they would, if they have anything like that. I'm going to turn off my camera since it says my internet is unstable. We'll see if that's. Yeah, there's also, if you see at conventions, there's often some board game companies that have giant versions of their games. Sometimes they will lend those to people, to libraries and schools. We had a Word on the Street set that was donated by the company. I forget what the name of the publisher was because they're out of business. But it was like a letter game that you just use giant pizza boxes as the letters on the street. And they mailed it to us. All we had to do was be responsible for mailing the whole set to the next library that wanted to borrow it. So that's pretty cool. Other things we've done that have been popular were 8-bit crafts using perler beads. You can search on Google for like 8-bit sprites and find out the 8-bit designs that are easy to recreate with perler beads. I have a picture of that in a few slides as well. That does take a little bit of prep if you want to separate out colors for people ahead of time. I had volunteers help me do that so that the people didn't just spend all of their time at the table sorting the colors that they needed. So we had them sorted. You can do D&D for beginners or any tabletop RPGs for beginners. World building or how to be a DM, how to play. You can do short one-shots. If you're not familiar with being a DM or a game master yourself, check out your friendly local game store or see if you have volunteers in the area or other staff members that would be willing to do so. Oh, I see in the chat that somebody did a life-size battleship game. That is also awesome. Oh, speaking of other giant games, we also had like a Quidditch one year where you use hula hoops on poles. so that people can ride a broom around and play Quidditch. You need a lot of space for that, but that was also really fun. We in the past have, using our local gaming store folks, have had learn to play events for collectible card games like Magic and Pokemon. Those are the two perennial favorites, of course, because you might not always have someone on staff that is familiar with all the rules of those games. So it's good to have somebody who is working at a game store who has extensive knowledge of that. Again, you can lean heavily on your community and volunteers. Trivia challenges, we did a lot of those actually during COVID, virtual, using Kahoot. We called them family trivia challenges, so they could have as many people in their household on the other end of the Zoom answering the questions. So it was like a pooling of adult and teen and youth knowledge. So we would have like a variety of difficulty levels in the questions. I did a video game trivia where it was all themed around video games. You can also wrangle in other fandoms like fantasy, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, all those good things, because games often intersect with fandoms, as we know. Kind of a no-brainer is just a community board game day. We try this every year, like a Saturday, a big chunk of time, 4 or 5 hours, where people can come in, have open board gaming with incentives, of course, because who doesn't love prizes? We usually give away prizes throughout the day to keep people engaged. But it's also good to have, along with those community board game days, we use 2 other things happening at the same time. So it's not just the board games, in case people are like, I don't want to learn a new game, or they don't see anything that they feel like playing. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. Other things we've done, you might have gleaned that we are fortunate to have a pretty good programming budget at my current library. So we do have 4 VR headsets. Currently we have 4 Quest 2s. So occasionally we will hold VR open houses or other themed VR programs where people can just come in. We have them sign a waiver because it could make them feel icky if they get motion sickness. So we have them sign a waiver, especially if they are a minor. Their parent has to sign the waiver before they can use the equipment. But then we give them a quick intro of how to use the headset, and then just let them pick one of the apps or games that we have loaded on the headset. A perennial favorite is Beat Saber, the music game with lightsaber-like controllers, where you break the blocks in time to the music. But there's all sorts of other things you can do with VR. You can have high score tournaments with that as well. If you have the technology, you can also cast, because that is sort of an individual thing, because it's the one person looking at their headset, but you can cast the headset to a screen within the room and show people what that person is seeing. Another big success we've had through the years, I've done many escape rooms using the Breakout EDU platform. They have lots and lots of scenarios. I highly recommend you check that out. It is a subscription service, but it's not hugely expensive for the annual fee. There is kind of sort of an upfront materials cost if you want to do the in-person breakout or escape scenarios, where you need a box that has a whole bunch of different kinds of locks on it, with combination locks, color locks. But have those kits, it will last you a long time, and you can get a lot of use out of it with the scenarios that they have. We've done both like only sessions for escape rooms, because sometimes adults want to figure it out and do the more difficult things without teens or kiddos around. But we've also done family ones, and ones where it's only teens and adults together. I've already mentioned partnering with your friendly local game store. If you're lucky enough to have one near you, share that partnership and that connection as much as you can. I don't know, maybe hopefully you have an understanding game store near you where, the library is not in competition if we're holding board game programs. We're only encouraging people to try things before they love it enough to come buy it at their store. And they are also another good resource for things like a Magic the Gathering booster draft. I've done that once where the library paid for the product. We bought boxes of Magic booster cards, which, if you're familiar, they're kind of expensive. And we said, hey, just sign up for our booster draft and you'll get free product. And we didn't even have a full sign up, so I don't know what happened there. I couldn't understand it. I was like, free Magic cards, come play in our booster draft. Maybe it was the weather that day. I don't know. But we were lucky enough to have somebody from the game store that came to be the judge and basically run the booster draft, because like those nitty-gritty questions can come up in Magic games. If you're not familiar with the game, you're not going to be able to run it. We also done play testing for the local game designers. You can search in your area. You might have a Protospiel game design conference near you. We have a group here near us called the Indie Tabletop Game Creators, and they hold board game design and play testing events throughout the year. But we've invited them to the library now for 2 years in a row. We're doing that again this year. If you don't have games in your collection at your library, you might be able to find a video game truck near you that you could hire to be at your library for a few hours. We did this the last year, and kiddos really loved that too. Board game battle royale. We've tried this once, and it sounds awesome to me. It wasn't. We didn't have huge attendance, so I think we need to try it again. It was on a weeknight. I think we need to try a weekend. But we tried it as an adults-only event, where you show up with a teammate and you go through some lightning quick rounds of like easy games, like Connect Four or Operation or Jenga or Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza. And so you compete against another team, try to get as many points as you can, move on in the bracket, and then we had a championship round where we had like a giant game of Jenga for the championship round, with prizes, of course, for the winning team. So that was a lot in a little bit of time. If you want to go to the next slide, though, I just have a few pictures of some of the things that I've been talking about here. We get the next slide. Yeah, thanks. So there, top left is the 8-bit perler bead crafts. Somebody building a Pikachu. You can use all sorts of Mario things to, go back one. Yeah, the Nintendo 8-bit graphics were great for that. Easy to find those images online and print them out for people to just recreate in a perler bead grid, basically. Video game truck that I mentioned, the one locally is called GameStar Mobile. Prizes, every year we buy a pool of prizes to give away at our like open gaming event, or if we have a tournament, you need prizes. Gift cards, of course, to your local gaming store are great as well. There we have an adult using one of our VR headsets and just retro gaming in the bottom right corner there, where we have the NES emulators for Super Mario Brothers. Next slide. The long faces in the top left is one of our escape rooms where they did not succeed. So they are still trapped in 1986 because their time machine broke. But they had a lot of fun, even though they did not break out of 1986. There's the Frogger High Score Tournament there in the middle top. Oh, I forgot to mention, we also have partnered with Hoosier Gamers. If you're in the Indy area, you've probably heard of this organization. It's just a volunteer nonprofit in our area. They organize local conventions and they do gaming for charity. So we've invited them, and we have quarterly game days supported by the Hoosier Gamers at our library. There's the giant Scrabble. Bottom left, you can see that we got tired of masking tape the entire grid. On the right there, you can see we did 2 rows, but we're like, I think the column's enough. We can figure it because it was a lot of tape and a lot of labor, but it was worth it in the end. And then the giant Catan that we were lucky enough to have somebody lend to us. Very cool. That would be some dedication if somebody wanted to build one of those. And then I just had a little one up because I needed something to fill in there. Were there any questions while I ran through all of those ideas?
Oh, we did just get one.
Okay.
Do you use events to encourage participants to become readers? And if yes, what is the conversation or conversion rate of gamers becoming readers while having a wonderful passion in gaming?
We always, to the first part of that question, yes. We will always pull books from the collection about games, the history of games, those various books about how to play card games with a standard deck of cards, D&D books, role-playing books that we have in our collection, anything to showcase that, we have print materials as well that will support gaming. I don't know that I can speak to the conversion rate of gamers becoming readers. That's a tough one.
All right. Well, if there's any other questions, feel free to drop them in and we'll get to them as we can.
I will say that, sorry, Megan, right before you get started, usually in our summer reading program or our winter reading program, we use Beanstack. And so sometimes we use their bingo card. It's basically a gamification of a reading challenge or an activity. Like we have reading things and activity-based things where they can complete a bingo card. So it intersects with reading in that way at other times of the year.
Megan?
All right. Can you hear me? Make sure microphone's working. All right, good. So I'm Megan Wilson. I am a research and instruction librarian at Murray State University in Murray, Kentucky. My primary role is to provide research assistance, but in my spare time, I also work as the chair of our outreach and marketing committee. And I am the gaming guru of the library. So we started doing international games. It was International Games Week at the time, back in 2018. We started out with a single program, sort of a just drop in. We do have a circulating board game collection. So our very first program was just a drop in, come play board games with your friends sort of event. Over time, we started adding more programs. And at the moment, we actually run a 8-day long, we still call it International Games Week, even though it's officially International Games Month, because we do try to keep it to that week, but it's actually 8 days. And we have started partnering with our campus community. So we have a number of gaming clubs on campus that we have partnered with. So we actually have started inviting them to come in and basically provide the space. They do the programming, and then we fill in where we have gaps. So we try to do 1 program per day. And then on days that we don't have groups coming in, we will do our own programming. So groups that we've worked with, we do have a chess club. Is actually one of our librarians is the faculty advisor for that group. And he also works with community chess groups. So we have done some mixed community and campus events. We had a ranked tournament. He is a officially licensed or whatever chess tournament runner. So he's run some official tournaments for us. We have also had some drop-in chess events, both with the chess club, but also we just put some chess boards out, come play chess at between noon and 4 p.m. on a random Tuesday, just to take a break from studying. We have had esports come in and run programmings. They have done a lot of our video gaming. We do have some older systems. We have a Wii and an Xbox 360 that the library owns that we can pull off for programming, but we've largely let esports come in and run most of our video game programs at this point. They have done some virtual events with us as well. So we did run programming during COVID. We did primarily run online events. So we did some Zoom events with Jackbox Games. They also ran a couple tournaments through online. We did an online chess tournament during that time as well. And then we also had some print and plays that people could come and pick up. We were open during that time, but we weren't allowed to hold large scale events. So we compromised. We do still do some print and plays. So we did have a weekend day that we didn't have programming for this last year. So we did have a day that was just print and play pickups where we basically printed out the stuff and put it in an envelope and set them out with some instructions and let people sort of come and pick up as they will. As far as events the library has run, we have done some low stress drop-in events, especially on the Friday of the week. We've done a chess drop-in where we just pulled out some Dollar Tree chess boards and put them out on the tables and people could come and work with them. We've also done just drop-in board games. And last year we did a event called It's in the Cards, where we just got a bunch of decks of cards and set them out on tables and printed out instructions on various card games. So we played Old Maid, we did Go, we played golf. So we had a bunch of different card games that people could choose from, which went from very complicated to super simple. And people could come in and sort of play those as they wanted. More extensive events, we'll actually go to the next slide and then I will talk about those events when I get to those slides.
Oops.
But
There we go.
there we go. So we do have a website. This is a Google site that I run. I will drop that in the chat if anybody's interested in looking at it. We started this during COVID as a way to provide links and resources for our online events. We also have, but we've kept it up. We keep the schedule on here, as well as information about some of the programs that we run. And we usually put this as a QR code on our flyers so that students can come in and sort of look at our resources, look at the schedule. And this is our schedule from last year. So on the bottom, you can see how it looks on the website. And then on the right side of the screen is what it looked like on our flyers. So as you can see, we had a program every day. Esports participated, the chess club participated. We did trivia night and around the world in 8 games, which I'll talk about in a minute. Were programs that we ran within the library. And then we had a Smash Brothers tournament, which was run by Esports. We did our drop-in board games. We do have a board game club now. They just started back in the spring. So they are a new addition to our lineup. So we've let them sort of take over the board games, which they have used some of our board games from our circulating collection. They've also brought in their own games. And they've actually been a great resource for suggesting games to add to our circulating collection. So we know what the students want instead of what us old fogies are interested in. And then we had on that Saturday, our print and play pickup. We've also actually added a spring edition of our games week. So this past year, we also did a lawn games in the spring since it was a little bit warmer. But you never know. Sometimes it's warm in November, so it could be an option depending on where you are. So we did that. We've also shifted it now. So you'll notice that our International Games Week this week is from November 2nd to November 9th, which is actually a Thursday to a Thursday. So we bookended the weekend so that to sort of get people interested in those weekend programs. And next slide. So one of our more popular programs that we've run recently is a trivia night. So we have done this, and this will be the 3rd time that we've done a trivia night. We have done it for about 2 hours, 5 to 7 on a Tuesday in the past. We'll be doing it on Thursday this year. All of our events are in the same space. So we have a gallery space that we use for all of our events. For this event, they can come in and play as a group. So they can come in as a group or they can come as individuals and then we'll assign them a group. So we usually will do groups of 3 to 4. There are 7 categories with 10 questions each. One is a picture category and one is a sound category, which has varied. We did sound logos one year. We did this year, I'm going to have one with Funko Pops with characters, and they have to go in and guess which character they are. So we have had prizes for this. So mostly we've used library merch that we have purchased for giveaways and things like that. We've also been able to do some gift cards. I've also sourced some extra games I've had laying around that people don't want anymore. So things that have been donated, but we don't use in the collection. So there's a lot of different ways that we can do prizes. We have a button maker in our makerspace. So I've been debating whether I should make gaming buttons to give to everybody that comes to the event. This is the one event we do also provide refreshments for. So we usually will buy a pack of Capri Suns and some chips and things like that, that people can pick up when they come in, especially since it sort of overlaps that dinner time area. So this has been one of our more well-attended programs. I have been having lots of fun writing trivia. There are also lots of online trivia packs that you can find for free. Yes, I did not spell individually wrong. I just realized that when I looked at this. Although I did not make this flyer, so not my fault. But I did notice that that was misspelled when we got to this slide. But yeah, so it's been a really popular program. I've had more fun writing the trivia. I don't know if they've had as much fun answering the trivia as I've had writing it, but you know, I have fun. But we can go in. What?
We did have a question about esports and
okay.
Either what your involvement is and maybe how libraries could think about adding esports, or I'd love more information on esports and how we can get started with that at our library.
So I don't know if I'm the best person to ask about that. Our esports is a separate entity from us. So we have an official esports team for the university. So they actually have a new lounge being built in our student center. So they've gotten real fancy these days. So I don't know that I can really speak to how to start your own esports. You might want to reach out if there is a local school that may have an esports team, or if you know of any esports teams, might consider reaching out to them directly. We mostly just provide the space for them to come and do events, as well as providing promotions. So we also do an event at the beginning of the semester, and they've been coming and doing events related to that to sort of promote their group. So we've mostly been in a supporting role. So yeah, I would try to reach out to any of the local esports group that may be around you and see what they suggest. But yeah, of course. And we can go ahead to the next slide. So another program that we've run, this is one of the earliest programs that we started doing. It's called Around the World in 8 Games. This sort of came out of the idea that if it's going to be called International Games Week or International Games Month, then we should have international games. This has been a labor of love, I would say. So I have spent several years compiling different games from around the world, and trying to source some of these games has been interesting. The first time we did it, we did get a lot of our FAT library staff would let us borrow their games. So we've borrowed Yet Nori, as well as Melbourne's. And then there were some that we made ourselves. So Dudo, or Perudo, as it is known, if you purchase it. It's also known as Liar's Dice, or if you've watched Pirates of the Caribbean, Pirates Dice. And the first time we did this, I just went and bought dollar store dice and bought a bunch of cups, and we ran it that way. We have since added some of these games to our collection. So the library purchased the games, and we do have them as part of our circulating collection as well. And we'll pull those and use them for this event. I actually have about 22 games now in the list. So I try to just choose 8 of them to sort of highlight for the week. And I will actually, let me drop this in the chat. So this is our page on International Game, this Around the World in 8 Games program. I do have an international games guide that I created that includes the instructions and some history on some of these games. We have also created some of these games in our makerspace. So we do have a makerspace downstairs. So we have access to 3D printers as well as a laser cutter. And we've also done some that we've just printed out on paper. So we did Go that way. We made, basically printed out a board. We did a small version. It was a 9x9 because Go is a long-term game, sort of just to give people the idea of how it works. Bog Chawl has also been surprisingly popular. So we've actually have a 3D printed version, but I also provide a paper version when we do it because only 2 players at a time. And we usually have multiple people who are interested in that game. So it's been a lot of fun to do this program. And we've been able to, the nice thing about it is with a lot of the print and play, and some of these games, especially the older games, are in the public domain. So being able to sort of create them ourselves to use We've also done a sister program. We haven't done it as part of International Games Month, but we have done it as part of our spring event. We have done one called Ancient Games, which has focused more on older games. So things like backgammon, Bog Chal, the TOEFL games, things like that. And again, we 3D printed or created paper versions of those games to be able to play. So it's very budget friendly. It also has the advantage of being educational. We have had a lot of participants come from our global languages department. So they've actually had this as an event that they can get credit for their classes to come to, which has helped with our participation rates. So it's been a lot of fun. We also have done Mahjong. I have a coworker that knows how to play it. So she has come and taught them how to do that for this program as well. So it's been lots of fun.
Of course, I'm muted. Okay, so we still have about 20 minutes left. We would love to have some questions, answers, discussion. If you all have done things for International Games Day, week, month, if you are curious about it and want to know very specific things from one of us as panelists, we'd be happy to share. And while we are, while you all are sort of thinking about that and getting your questions into chat, I will drop all the links in one more time and kind of use this as a chance for one more call out. So the group through ALA does encourage libraries to register. We do get sponsors every year. And while all of the physical giveaways have occurred because they need time to ship stuff to people to get it there for November, there are still chances to get your name drawn and win discount codes. We have at least 2 sponsors already and more that are kind of working out the details with us about who will give away discount codes to their stores. So if you have not registered yet, I would strongly encourage you to think about registering. Put the weight in the mark. Oh, yes, cataloging. So it looks like in chat there's been some discussion of pieces and cataloging. And John suggests putting the weight in the mark record and a scale at the cert desk. Oh, yep. And Danielle's got exactly what I was going to say, that weight is helpful, but keep in mind humidity can change weights. Oh, here's a question. Is it a struggle to get buy-in from administration?
Thankfully, I've not had that problem. I've always had very supportive managers and senior administration that see the value of gaming in libraries, and as well as partnerships with local groups or local game stores, and how great that is for the community.
Yeah, I haven't had a whole lot of difficulty with administration. I will say that we did start out with basically programs that had no budget and sort of have worked our way up into programs that cost more. Our dean has been very supportive all the way through this, but that could be a way if you are having some struggles to get support for gaming and gaming programs, is sort of start out with some cheap or no budget programs like print and plays that don't really cost anything. Or, like I said, we had that first time we did that Around the World in 8 Games event, we did source the games from the people who work at the library. And then as it sort of gained momentum, we actually bought those games and added them to the circulating collection, which has also helped with diversity initiatives as well. So as part of it, they don't necessarily circulate as well as some of the other games, but because people are not aware of them, but we do find that having them in the collection is helpful in sort of exposing people to things that they may not be as familiar with. And we do have a large international student population, so sort of working with them to sort of figure out what games they might be interested in adding to that international games collection has been very helpful.
We have a question. Do games such as League of Legends, Wild Rift, on Moiji, I'm not sure how to say that one, Call of Duty, get used at your events. Also interested to know if MMO games are used for challenges.
I personally have not featured any of those games at our library events. It's not to say that you couldn't,
Yeah.
but it's just we try to go with the most wide appeal, and so that tends to be sometimes things like Mario Kart or Super Smash Brothers, and some of the more kind of party feel type of games. Yeah, Megan.
We don't do a whole lot with those type of games in our library, so I don't have anything to add on that one.
Yeah, I think I haven't heard much about some of those more intense MMOs. I think, as Danielle said, it's in most library programs that I've heard of, it's simpler, more mass appeal type games.
Yeah, a while ago at my previous library, we did have one international, I think it was, might have still been National Games Day at that point. We did set up a few computers in our PC lab. There was like a World of Warcraft free trial at the time, and I think also a Dungeons and Dragons online free trial at the time. So we had a couple of PCs set up for that, but that's as far as I've ventured into the MMO world as far as library programming.
Next question is, if pieces are lost, do either of you charge patrons for the whole game? And is it for a whole game or is it for some other amount?
In my experience at the two libraries where I've worked where we circulate board games, it depends on if the piece is integral to the gameplay. Sometimes you can lose a piece and still play the game just fine, but sometimes you lose a piece and it can really affect whether each player is able to, be on the same playing field as everybody else. So if we have to have, then we will call the patron, ask them to look for it, return it if they find it. We generally don't charge patrons unless they've totally wrecked the game and it was obvious that, they dropped it in a puddle or, we're generally forgiving. And, life is life and pieces are small and sometimes they get lost. But sometimes we will replace pieces ourselves, if not with an exact replica of something that's close enough to be a stand-in.
Yeah.
We're lucky enough to have a great makerspace at our library, so you can 3D print some simple pieces if need be.
Yeah, a lot of libraries I've heard of 3D print. Many game publishers will either for free or for a very nominal fee offer replacement parts as well.
Yeah, it varies widely.
Yeah.
Publishers, some of them will not do it. Some of them are happy to send replacement pieces.
Yeah. And kind of tied to pieces, does anyone have or use any sort of special cases that they put their circulating games in? This person figures that the cardboard boxes getting damaged might, of course, increase the chances of losing pieces.
So we do not check out our games in the boxes. We have we separated the boxes and the pieces are kept in bags behind our circulation desk. So, which has caused some interesting issues because the idea was that the box would go with them when they checked them out. But that has not generally been the case. They usually leave the box with us and just take the bag, which is fine. But we have started adjusting our methodology since we've noticed that that is the preference. So they don't take the boxes with them most of the time. Occasionally they can if they want. But we do not keep them together, partially to prevent people from pulling them out while they're in the library. We'd like to know, even if they're playing in the library, we want them to check it out so that we know who has it and that it is being actively used. We've talked about changing that up, but we've decided that we're more concerned about pieces, being taken out by people or getting lost in the library or things like that. So we do not keep them together. We have them separated into bags behind our circulation desk.
Right.
We do circulate most of ours in their boxes. We use I think they're called X rubber bands. They're really giant rubber bands where you put it over the whole box and then so it covers all four sides of the box. There are some smaller things, card games that we have in, I'm not sure where we get them from because I'm not on the collection side of it, but they're those kind of heavy duty canvas bags with one clear side and a zipper. So it keeps smaller things like from getting, like the little tiny box from getting crushed and lost. But yes, most of ours are in their boxes.
Good back and forth on what games teach. I think that's mainly been answered in the chat, but I will say here for the record for everyone that in the resources I'll send along, we've got links to some webinars on educational use of games and soft skills in games and those kinds of things that might help you all out. Next question, have you had community concerns or have concerns ever been noted when it comes to things like Dungeons and Dragons? In the past, the negative press has sometimes raised due to the themes of the game. So I guess maybe they're harkening back
that
to,
I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They may be thinking of the
Like
Satanic Panic, which was obviously
was that
40 years
80s?
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. Not that I'm aware of. We've, through my years at the library and through game programs, we've featured Dungeons and Dragons or other kind of one-shot RPG systems, and I've never had anyone raise concerns about it.
Yeah.
About the content.
And I'll kind of say the same thing for that, Chris. I will include links. We've also had webinars on TTRPGs and their use, both therapeutic and sort of social emotional learning benefits to those types of games. So hopefully that will answer either your or your administration's questions. Let's see here. Yep, cost of doing business. You guys are doing a great job answering each other. Do you keep spare pieces to replace the common components, cubes, dice, meeples, etc.?
I can't speak to that 100% because again, I'm not on the collection side of maintaining our board game collection. But I know that we sometimes, like if a game is no longer playable and we can't find a replacement piece, we'll just hang on to that game, and so we can maybe possibly use its components in other ones that need something. So we kind of have like a mishmash collection now of pieces and components.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't have an official set of spare pieces. I do keep a lot of spare dice and random pieces for display purposes. So when we do gaming displays, I'll pull, I have a bunch of cards that are missing some of the cards and things like that. So I will use things like that for displays. So theoretically we could pull pieces if we found a piece that went missing. To my knowledge, we have not had that happen as of yet. We mostly just have games that just don't come back more often than not. So it could be that they lost a piece and then just decided not to bring the game back. Unclear. So we haven't had a lot of the pieces go missing. We did have one that the box went missing. They brought the game back but didn't bring the box back. So we created a mock-up for the box instead. So that's the only example that I know where we had something go missing where we replaced it. But we do have extra dice around that we could slip in if we needed to.
So again, you guys are doing a great job in the chat, helping out each other, answering questions. And thank you for that suggestion on the future topic. I don't know if we have any on that topic already, but if not, I will definitely look into it. So keep the questions coming if you've got them, but we are close enough to the end that I will go ahead and do our super secret spoiler. And that is to let everyone know that the Games and Gaming Roundtable is officially going to be starting our own Hall of Fame and giving out our own game awards coming soon. The press release will probably drop sometime during International Games Month this year in November. And how it's going to work is that there will be a big call out. Anyone in the libraries, anyone in gaming is going to be able to nominate their favorite games. There will be some criteria, but basically it's games that work well in a library setting. So whether it's for your programming, whether it's for circulation, whether it's for educational purposes. So we don't basically want, what's hot this week, because in a library, we probably can't get it this week. We might not get it for 2 years. So again, all of those details will come out with the press release on the website, but you're sort of getting a sneak peek at the look of the awards, designed by the same designer who did our new logo, which is of course right now in the upper left of your screen. The classics will be defined as anything older than, I think it was going to be 10 years. I can't remember. It'll be all in the release. And we will announce the first inductees into the Hall of Fame in January. Those have already been determined by the committee. And then in typical sports Hall of Fame style, you will have a window after the game has been published, like two years after it's published, it can be nominated up to, I think, 10. And if it doesn't get inducted in that window, it can then be put up to be put into the Classics Hall of Fame. So all of those details will be coming hopefully early in November. But you heard it here first.
That's super exciting.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave this last slide up with our contact information. Feel free to take that if you need it. Feel free to put more questions in the chat. And while you're doing that, I'm going to grab the link to the LEU form so that you all who need it can request one.
Hey, George, I think there was a question earlier about low budget programming.
Sure. So talk amongst yourselves on that one.
I don't know. I don't think either of us, I meant to mention it. I don't know. I don't remember if Megan did, but print and play games are a great option for that, because all you need is some paper and a printer. So I know it wasn't strictly related to International Games Week or month, but one of our librarians this year and last year, since we're in the Indianapolis area where the huge Gen Con gaming convention is every year, she did a display called Gen Can't. If you can't go to the convention, she printed out a whole bunch of print and play games that people could just pick up the packet and take with them for free. Take it home and keep it forever. I know that I think we have a link somewhere on the International Games Month website to print and play games, don't we, George? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we try to feature a few each year. I don't remember if we got new ones up this year. So it may be last year's that are still listed. But there's definitely, and I'll go ahead and let me grab that link. There's definitely a place on the Game RT general website that has a bunch of print and play games.
Yeah, you can also, if you have a Board Game Geek account, Board Game Geek has a lot of print and plays, as does PNP Arcade. They usually will have some that you can get for free as well. There are also games that that are low budget. So we, like I said, with the card event, we went and bought a handful of decks of cards, spent like $10 on it, or had people bring in cards that they had. So I have a bunch of decks of cards at home, so I just brought them in and set them out. They may have had Southwest on the back of them because I got them from the airline when I flew years ago, but they work. They're still cards. So that's another low budget option. And there's a lot of card games out there that you can play. So you just have to pull the instructions for different games. And then you have a low budget program. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy.
Yes, another sneak peek.
I just had an idea come to me. If you wanted to do, it's like if you wanted to do something like the board game battle royale, but you don't have that at your disposal already, you could say bring a game. Anybody who's participating, they could bring a game, because I'm sure most people have something like Connect 4 or Jenga at home. The rounds are gonna consist of. That could be fun too. Kind of crowdsource the games for the program.
Yeah, you can do it. Bring your own game. BOB. Bring your own board game.
Sure. All right. Well, it looks like we're kind of near the end of the questions, so I'm going to go ahead and have Lisa end the recording.